Hello guys, last video ko na pala to this year, June
Toblerone
2026 na
truffles,
ulat.
velvety
So nga
diamond-shaped
pala,
chocolate with a crunchy
magre-react tayo sa
nougat
most
filling.
intense cave
Of the
incidents
Earth Cave
ever.
incident. On January 10th,
Center of the Earth?
1990, three people entered
Ano
a
yun,
lava
core?
cave in Hawaii for a relaxing sauna
Cave.
experience. The cave near Route 137 in Hawaii's Puna district was known as Nature's Underground Spa. It had hot water pools and temperatures that reached 96 degrees from
Grabe.
ancient volcanic activity. Rodney Armour, 55 years old,
Kala
was
ko
visiting with
96
his wife
degrees
Joe
Celsius.
and friend Mauve Pfizer. The three arrived at the cave entrance in a natural sink dropping 11 feet from ground level. At the bottom was the entrance to what locals called the center of the Earth Cave. The cave's entrance was immediately challenging with a narrow descending tube. You had to crawl through a tunnel with rock
Yes,
pressing from all sides. Once through that constriction, the cave opened up significantly into larger passages. The cave system was extensive, as large as a city block with many side passages. The heat was intense at 96 degrees with high humidity from hot water pools. Rodney, Joe, and Mauve began exploring using only flashlights with no specialized equipment. They had no ropes, helmets, backup lighting, or communication devices. At some point during exploration, Rodney became separated from his wife and Mauve. In the large cave with numerous side passages, he took a wrong turn. For Rodney, being alone in the intensely hot environment was immediately stressful. Instead of staying put and calling out, Rodney began making desperate choices. In his panicked state, he started moving deeper into the cave system. He was no longer thinking logically about navigation or safety. Each turn he took pushed him further from the main routes. The passages Rodney chose were getting narrower and more restrictive. Instead of recognizing this as a warning, his panicked mind pushed forward. Eventually, Rodney found a particularly narrow passage angling downward diagonally. Experienced explorers would avoid such passages, especially when alone, but Rodney's panic had overtaken his rational thinking completely. He began squeezing himself into the narrow diagonal constriction. As he wedged in, he quickly realized he had made a terrible mistake. The passage was barely wide enough with solid rock pressing from all sides. He couldn't turn around, couldn't back out, and couldn't move forward. He was effectively trapped in a stone coffin angled downward. The psychological impact of being wedged was catastrophic. Complete panic set in as his breathing became rapid and shallow. His heart rate skyrocketed and he experienced a full-blown panic attack. He was hyperventilating in the hot, humid air while his body overheated. His mind was consumed with the terror of being buried alive. Meanwhile, Joe and Mauve realized Rodney was missing and called out for him. But in the cave with branching passages and echoes, their voices never reached him. After searching as long as they dared, they exited to call for help. At 2:30 p.m., they reported Rodney missing to emergency services. The rescue operation was urgent and incredibly challenging in the extreme heat. Professional rescue teams organized searches in 20-minute shifts to prevent heat exhaustion. They systematically searched the cave system following proper protocols. When rescuers finally found Rodney, the scene was tragic. He was wedged deep in the narrow diagonal. Immediately clear that Rodney had died from cardiac arrest. By 4:15 p.m., they had successfully removed his body from the cave. Sierra Nevada Cave Incident. During the summer of 1990, cave explorers surveyed a cave system in California's Sierra Nevada mountains. The group had spent hours underground working through various sections with surveying equipment. By the time they headed for the entrance, they were physically exhausted. The exit route took them to where an underground stream descended to a lower level. Rather than following the water, the group proceeded along a narrow canyon passage. Derek High was the last one in line as they walked through the narrow passage. As Derek walked, he noticed something unusual about the floor ahead. There was a section where the surface appeared lower, like a dip in the ground. The floor looked somewhat fragile, but also seemed solid enough to walk on. The floor wasn't bedrock, but a thin layer of debris over a vertical crevice. The crack dropped straight down to the stream 35 feet below. As Derek stepped forward, putting his full weight on what he thought was solid ground, disaster struck. Without any warning, the floor completely disappeared beneath his feet. Derek suddenly found himself falling into a pitch-black void. His neck caught on the edges of the crevice opening. Derek's entire body weight was suddenly being supported by his neck alone. He was suspended in the vertical shaft by his neck, with his body hanging below. The pain was excruciating and the pressure on his neck was enormous. Then the situation got worse as rocks and debris started falling. Rocks wedged around Derek's neck, piling against his trapped head and shoulders. Derek threw his arms outward against the crevice walls. The shaft was narrow enough that he could reach both walls. Using a technique called chimneying, Derek pressed against both walls with all his strength. By pushing hard against the walls, he took the crushing pressure off his neck. His neck slowly loosened up, but the crevice walls started collapsing again. More debris cascaded down from above like a deadly waterfall. The falling debris pushed Derek downward, forcing him deeper into the shaft. Derek kept slipping further down with his arms were already shaking from the constant strain. Once his muscles gave out completely, he would fall to his death below. The other spelunkers heard the catastrophic collapse behind them. They found a gaping hole where solid ground should have been. When they shined lights down, they saw Derek wedged 15 feet below. His arms were visibly shaking, and it was clear he couldn't hold much longer. The group quickly retrieved rope from their equipment. When the rope reached Derek, they told him to tie it around his torso. But Derek's arms were the only thing keeping him from falling. If he released pressure to work with the rope, he would fall. He quickly released both arms and grabbed onto the rope. He plummeted a few inches but managed to get a good grip. Through desperation and willpower, Derek looped the rope around his torso. The others told Derek to try climbing while they pulled from above, but Derek was utterly exhausted and his muscles wouldn't respond. He looked up and shook his head. They would have to pull him up. The group positioned themselves around the opening and began pulling on the count. Derek was essentially dead weight, unable to assist in his own rescue. After several minutes of intense effort, Derek's head appeared at the edge. With a final coordinated heave, Derek was hauled over the edge to solid ground. Against all odds, Derek had survived a situation that should have killed him. The group marked the dangerous crevice with clear warnings for future explorers. On September 20th, underground Empire Mine Cave, each person needed harnesses, helmet. Dave Bunnell, who was 53 years old and very experienced, started his descent next. His rappel down the entrance pit went perfectly according to plan. Falling rock struck Dave and pinned his backpack against the wall. The rock also trapped Dave's leg in the narrow chimney passage. Dave couldn't move freely and was stuck under the weight of the heavy stone. Using his years of caving experience, Dave stayed calm and worked to free himself. He carefully figured out how to move without causing more rocks to fall. Through strength and determination, Dave managed to escape from the rock's grip. But when Dave got free, he discovered an even bigger problem. The fallen rock had settled in a new position that completely blocked the chimney passage. Below the rock, Mindy was now trapped in the lower section of the chimney. The rock blocked her path back up and she couldn't reach her team members. The sound of the rockfall brought Joel Despain hurrying down to help. Cave rescues are very difficult because of the tight spaces and limited access. The team had to work with whatever tools and skills they had available. Dave, Shane, and Joel faced a life or death and coordinated force, and the communication was important to climb up, over, and out of the tight passage very carefully. She needed precise body positioning to avoid getting stuck again. Mindy successfully squeezed through the gap and escaped to safety, back to its original position, but the rock was too heavy and they couldn't restore the passage. The rockfall had
Yan lang pala, bye.